My father used to tell me, do you know how you can catch a butterfly? And he taught me this when I was a kid. He said, if you want to catch a butterfly, you should not run after it. You should make a beautiful garden and it will come by itself. And that's also, for example, a metaphor you can use for watches. You should not try to catch the wave and try to do what the others do. You should focus on yourself.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. It has been 5,918 days since we last sold a watch on aBlogtoWatch. That's right, we don't sell watches on aBlogtoWatch, we just report about them. Isn't that right, Ariel?
Yeah, I guess it's weird that we have to keep reminding people that. Like, we're the magazine that's still a magazine. We have to tell people. Like, I think we have to be like, what is it, like a reverse influencer or something? No, maybe that sounds silly. I just feel like it's hilarious. You know, at the beginning of the website, on the header, we had to add that we're independent watch media, just to clarify. Which, again, the team and others, like I've had brand people be like, you know, Ariel, you should on your website say that you're media, just to remind people. And when the brands advise us to do it, I'm like, okay, it's probably smart.
I want one of those signs like you get on a building site at a nuclear power station, like you see in The Simpsons, about the number of days since there was last a major accident. But I want it to represent the fact that we've never sold a watch. The old kind of JCB, we have not and will never sell a watch. But we are going to talk about lots of watches that are worth selling. But first of all, David, how are you this morning?
Good, very well. Oddly energetic. I'm not buying anything.
You're just not buying anything.
Well, I don't think I've ever bought anything in the morning. Come to think of it.
So
for real.
Before, like, normally it's that you're not supposed to drink before the sun is over the yard arm, but you don't buy watches until the sun is over the yard arm.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Great stuff. Well, we are joined by someone who I think it's fair to say that if you can wait until 2026, then it is worth buying one of his now incredibly sold out watches. Sylvain Berneron from Berron and also from Breitling. How are you, Sylvain?
Good morning, guys. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very well, thank you.
Is there really any point in speaking to you about this watch because we're never going to see one because you've sold them all already? Or do we just have to wait till the dive version comes out?
I don't know. I mean, this is something I discussed with Ariel and David at length when I started this project. As I said it multiple times, I was ready to cross the desert with bare feet, thinking that I would be misunderstood by everybody except a few minority of collectors. And if someone would have told me that I would have pre-allocate and effectively pre-sold 3 years of collection, even before we could ship the first watch, I would have never believed, to be honest. Yeah. So this project is turning out way better than I could ever imagine, to be honest. And I'm very grateful. And it's one more time the occasion to thank all the collectors who are backing us up. We are very touched, Alex and I.
I have to interject here because this is an expected outcome of the beautiful design. But Sylvain, I want to ask you an important question. What we know is that when something cool comes out in the watch world, there's the early adopter phenomenon where, you know, your friends, colleagues, the sort of the people who are willing to test new things, they all jump aboard. But then after you sell to those people, you then sort of have to do the real work if you want to grow as a brand. And you and I have talked about that a little bit, but are you prepared at all for when, you know, the early adopters all get their watches and then, according to some people, the real marketing and promotion work starts?
That's what you are among these persons who told me this phenomenon. I actually did some research on it. It's called the law of diffusion. I think it's called, where you, like you said, you have the early adopters first, and then you have the first majority and then the late majority adopting the product. Everybody told me, if that's the response you have now, be prepared for a tsunami of orders when the first watches appear in reality. At the moment, I am not ready, but I will work on it. That's what I can say. Because, so Marie, Alex, and I are thinking now. Of course, I have to start the development of the second piece. I plan to launch a second piece for 2026. All the components for the movement, the casing, are in production as we speak. Everything goes very well. But my main focus at the moment is to deliver on what we promised, which means deliver the first 24 pieces in spring next year, in 4 months. And I want to make happy collectors first, that then we'll take it a step further.
More and more these days, professionals such as yourself, Sylvain, wear multiple hats, and brand creator, watch designer, and of course your important role at Breitling. What do you think is the right way, both from a personal level as well as from an outward-facing level, meaning the perception? How do you and others, how should you be juggling these multiple roles that sometimes can be confusing, and you want to make sure that all parties involved feel that you're squarely in their camp?
It is a very hard exercise because, as you know more than I do, the watch industry is extremely conservative and extremely stiff. I have to applaud my CEO, George Kern at Breitling. He's effectively supporting independent watchmaking indirectly, effectively. But on a daily basis, it is, in fact, extremely complex. I have a team of 60 people at Breitling. They, of course, know that I'm at 50%, but not everybody in the company knows because this is not something we widely advertise. So sometimes I run in comic situations when I'm being requested for meetings, for example, on a Thursday, and I decline, and people go like, wait, this guy is C-level, board member in the company, and he doesn't take meetings because he says it doesn't work on Thursdays. Well, what's the deal here?
A little rock star syndrome going on, huh? It's like me. I don't wake up before a certain time.
I love it.
So I end up in these comic situations, and I have to manage my time extremely wisely. So I try to give input on a strategic level and with a very top-down approach, like George tells me all the time. So George is actually mentoring me big time in order so that I can manage the time efficiently. And for Berneron, it's also very rock and roll because I spend all my weekends, of course, the evenings, and it's a project that could easily keep me busy the whole week, and yet I have to do it in 4 days. So thank God Marie-Alix is alongside with me to help me on that. But as I said, I'm the first one to be surprised. I did a real leap of faith, which is throwing 15 years of savings into a project that I believed in.
Oh, I just want to say thank you for that, Sylvain, and I encourage everyone to check out the aBlogtoWatch coverage of the Berneron Mirage, which is a beautiful melted watch. If you like the Cartier Crash, I guarantee you'll like this more.
Yes. And well, although it's probably more difficult to get hold of one of these now, that I want to know, because this is so different from anything that Breitling would ever produce, which is your main other hat, whether this has scratched the itch that industrially produced watch design has left void. You know, this is clearly everything that you could never do with a major brand. So do you feel there is a cleansing of the system, a cleansing of the palette for watch love that has been produced by bringing the Mirage to market? Do you feel cleansed?
What does cleansed mean exactly? My English.
Cleansed. Do you feel like you've had some colonic irrigation? Is that worse or better? So cleansed. Do you feel like you've
definitely worse?
Definitely worse. Do you feel you've cleaned out? Do you feel you've cleaned out your system?
Yes. Okay, now I get it. Yes, indeed. I mean, I've been working for big brands for 15 years. Ariel and I had this discussion on the fact that a designer should not work for a big brand trying to please himself. This is something I tell to my guys all the time. A designer is here to understand and respect the brand, and he should play the same tone of voice and tone of music for the brand. So, and because it is a creative job, as many creatives, we also have something inside that we want to express. We want to listen to our inner guide, so to speak. And after 15 years of working for big brands, I had the extreme need to express myself. And I didn't want to make a brand, and especially not with my own name on the dial, because to be honest, it is much easier to hide yourself behind a fancy name, much easier. All of a sudden, when you put your name on the dial, you have to own it and you have to be responsible for everything that goes either right or wrong. But it was, as it appears, the only way to have a proper medium to express this kind of work.
Within the team, you say of 60 people, have you accidentally encouraged any others within your team to go, well, if Sylvain can do this, is suddenly half the design department at Breitling squirreling off, dreaming of their own projects now that you've shown them how to do it?
No, actually, this is one of the concerns we had at the board, actually, that this could lead to some sort of infection. And it doesn't happen very much for two reasons, I guess. First, having ideas is one thing, and it's already hard enough, but doing the execution is a all other ballpark, because you have to find the money, you have to have the consistency to do it, and you have to sacrifice literally your personal time. It's not very romantic to say, but over the past 2 years, I lost 75% of my friends, and it hurts me to say it, but it is the truth. And I'm sure guys like Ariel, who have an entrepreneurship path, know what I talk about. You have to sacrifice so much to put a project like this off the ground. Like so many of my friends kept calling. I'd be curious to...
Business development can be a very lonely experience.
Yeah, really, and I'd be curious to hear your feedback on that, Ariel, because this is something I was not ready for. I had friends who kept calling and say, "Oh, I'm in Neuchâtel, where are you?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm working this weekend." And you do that 5 times in a row, and these guys, they just stop calling. And I understand, but this is the hard truth of entrepreneurship, and maybe something we don't talk about often enough.
So Sylvain would like some friends. So if you would like to be Sylvain's friend, email the show, podcast at aBlogtoWatch.com. We'll run a competition. Sylvain, send in headshots and things you like to do. It'd be like a blind date, but for friends. So it's friend zone only. Sylvain's very happily married. Friend zone only. If you want to be Sylvain's friend. And then he can just, I don't know if he can get you cheap Breitlings. He can't get you cheap watches of his own because he's not got any left.
I want to comment here, and I think that's a very important point that Sylvain makes about, how your colleagues will change depending on what your role is. Oftentimes, as an adult or as a kid, friends really represent people you have shared struggles with. You're both trying to work on something, you're both trying to achieve something, because you're both trying to do it and haven't entirely succeeded, perhaps. Therefore, there's camaraderie. And once you have new challenges that your old friends may not experience or relate to, then you probably need to find new friends that are going through similar challenges. And what I've seen is the independent watch space, a lot of these individuals, they end up being very close together because they're sort of in the same kind of challenge. But if one of them, their brand gets too big, or if they, they start to do really, really well, or they change that, all of a sudden the group of people that they're friendly with changes. And so this is part of the entrepreneur's journey where you have to recalibrate, and old friendships go away because unfortunately there's no longer a relatability there. And now a lot of your friends are going to be fellow brand owners who are trying to go through this same thing, and you have yet a new set of shared struggles that reflect your most current circumstances. So that's a real reality, and unfortunately, again, a lot of those friendships you need to leave behind. But what is left are colleagues and people that you can rely on, and people who ideally can support you by appreciating what you do. So it is a changing dynamic, and it is emotionally difficult. It sure can be.
Yeah. And to finish on the initial question from Rick at Breitling, so we do not have a growth of independent watchmakers, but we do have the growth of young people who have lives that I would have dreamed of as a designer 15 years ago. I started working for BMW when I was 18. That was in 2008. And now at Breitling, I will take a concrete example. We hired a junior designer 2 years ago. His name is Nathan. He's 24 years old. He comes to work only on Mondays, just like I do. The rest of the week is home office, and he trains to do Ironman competition. So this triathlon event that we sponsor with Breitling, and he's very happy to have 4 days of home office per week because he can do his training, which is running, cycling, swimming, during lunch break or early in the morning, and depending on his personal needs. Which on paper is extremely unprofessional the way we operate, but he's one of our best designers. The work is consistently delivered in time, the quality is there, the guy is motivated, and this goes to show that I think all generations, Y and Z, we have to dictate what is going to be the working ethics of tomorrow, because we work at a speed that is much, much higher than the previous generations. I have this discussion with my dad, for example. He had a corporate career for 40 years, and he told me the peak of his career, he would receive 35 to 40 emails per day. And for Breitling, I receive 100 emails per day. So how am I supposed to do all this job if I can't articulate the rest of the week the way I want?
David, you've been quiet this morning, but you were right in at the entry level of seeing this watch and have followed its development from a little piece of paper that we wrapped around our wrists to get an idea of what it may look like. What do you make of what has actually turned out?
Well, it's interesting because it just shows that it's a select few are capable, like Sylvain, for example. You're capable of these hyper jumps, basically from like one stage to another through your experience, through hard work, and it's just I don't think I believe that one of the most difficult things to convey to your customers and to our audience and to basically anybody is to understand how much work and how difficult it is to go from a paper cutout that you wrap around your wrist to something that Swiss suppliers can actually put into production and series production. It's it's completely different disciplines and schools and approaches and whatever else. And I think that is some area in the world of watchmaking that is very difficult to communicate, because for one, it's secretive, for two, it's very technical, three, it's thousands of emails and adjustments and prototyping and whatever else, and yet all of that goes into it, and what we see most of the time is just a finished product. And we've done countless manufacturer visits and all that, and lots of close-ups of people working on these things, and even like computer screenshots and whatever else from movement developers, and yet I believe that for our audience and for us as well, it takes years to even begin to grasp this void that lives in between the paper cutout and the finished product and everything that happens in there.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because the three of you have seen, as you said, the early prototypes 2 years ago, and we were discussing how could I put it together, what would be the steps required, and now we are more than 2 years later, and then the first movement will be assembled next month, actually, right before Christmas. So it's happening.
It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a miracle. I think the thing I would remark on is just how you have managed to stick to what you originally dreamed of doing. So when I saw the paper version of this 2 years ago, and this pretty much looks identical to what I think you actually envisaged in the first place. You've not been pushed down making tweaks by some mass corporate collective telling you something. You've managed to stick to your knitting and actually create what you wanted to create. It does feel like you have absolutely no regrets, especially now that you've sold them all, but absolutely no regrets in going down the route you've done. And I have to say, the comment section on the aBlogtoWatch article, go and check it out, is probably the most overwhelmingly positive feedback from an aBlogtoWatch audience on a new watch I have ever seen. So go and check that out. Sylvain, when will the first watch be delivered?
So we'll assemble the first movement in 3 weeks. Then it will go through what is called the Chronofiable test, which is an external company homologating the movement. So I want to do the testing for chronometry, precision, reliability, shock, etc. Then we're going to finish the production and ship the first pieces as of April 2024. So we're going to ship the first 24 pieces over the second quarter. And then this is how we're going to start. And then we're going to produce 24 pieces per year for the next 10 years.
Good. Well, look forward to seeing the real thing in the flesh at some stage. Okay, there are two big shows of various varieties going on in New York at the moment. One is a retrospective on the Reverso storage from JLC. The other is Planet Omega Exhibition. So my question to the three of you is, which one are you going to and why? Ariel, you can go to one, the JLC or the Omega. Which one are you going to and why?
I actually chose the Casio G-Shock 40th anniversary event, which was happening at the exact same time. So I had a different option. It just goes to show how many overlapping things are happening.
Might you have had some skin in the game of that particular exhibition?
Yeah, I mean, look, we had people at all the events. So Ripley from the aBlogtoWatch team was with Omega at Planet Omega, which was just a few blocks away, but you can only be at one place at the same time. It's really for me an interesting. I don't want to call it a brand evolution, but it's thoroughly solidifying what Omega is today. Omega has made some branding changes, and Omega is a lifestyle brand, a sort of jewelry brand when it comes to that. They're trying to sell desirability. They're trying to sell who's wearing it. And I get it, but I think it represents a very different Omega than what a lot of people are used to. And what I'm trying to do as an expert in this field is reframe myself. We so easily get caught up in how we remember a brand, but brands change all the time. And today, a lot of the luxury brands that are thoroughly luxury brands, decades ago were just average everyday watches that no one spent what they considered luxury dollars on. So I'm open-minded to Omega being a different thing, but this is really part of that experience. Omega has reached very, very high. I don't ever think they're going to be the same as Rolex, but they could be something different. And I want to be optimistic for them. And I'm curious. 10 years from now, someone who didn't grow up with watches like we did, what they will feel, what they will see about Omega. So for me, it's really about this exercise and rebranding. And I wish them well. But as you can see, it's a very difficult journey, and I think most people that grew up with one perception of Omega are just not really going to be able to transition to, I think, what Reynald, the CEO, and the others want the world to see Omega as right now.
So you're choosing the Omega exhibition. David, Omega or JLC exhibition in New York? You can go to one. Which one are you going to?
Omega, I guess. I've received so many emails from Jaeger about events and so few about watches that I would just flip out. If I had to go there. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been red carpet this, XYZ wears, whatever, Reverso. And
the struggle is real, David. The struggle is real.
It's never a watch.
Or they keep talking about Fibonacci curves in a rectangular case. I love this. They keep if you actually look at the connection between the Fibonacci curve and the Reverso, it is scant. I mean, Sylvain's watch is way more connected to this. So I think we all love Reverso, but compared to Omega, Omega's clearly doing the better branding job right now. But Omega's also throwing huge amounts of resources behind it.
Mm-hmm. Sylvain, you going to the Reverso exhibition or are you going to the Omega exhibition?
I mean, and I take my both hats off as a watch enthusiast. I would go to the Jaeger event because I love the quality of their watchmaking. But coming back on the Reverso, I think it shows the difficulties that it is. And we share that kind of difficulty at Breitling of how to bring your icons and keep them relevant into the 21st century. It's a very complex exercise because most of the time these pieces have been created in an environment that is the polar opposite of the world we live in today. So it becomes, and for example, this is the exercise I've done with my team on the Navitimer last year. And the Reverso is obviously a watch that has been built during the Industrial Revolution where people had very different lives. So the question comes, how do you keep this watch relevant today? And I think this is why we see such a strong effort to keep this watch relevant. But it's not an easy exercise at Jaeger.
Well, I am going to the Jaeger exhibit, but I am standing outside with a sign that says, no one ever wore a JLC Reverso while playing polo. It's a complete myth. There's just no way. I don't care what they tell me. Somebody might have asked
There's
and
no photographic evidence.
Vaguely suggested. I mean, when they tell the story, it kind of, they start the story, or somebody said British, blah, 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 India, polo, and then it kind of dies off, the story tails off. And as someone who knows a bit about the subject, the only person I've ever known to wear a watch has been wearing like a Richard Mille or a G-Shock or something. So there's no way a 1900-ish watch was ever worn successfully playing polo. I just don't believe it. So show me the photographs. I want the evidence. So I'm going to the JLC one. I might sneak in because I do like them. But I might sneak in and just, pretend, hide my sign.
And also, I mean, the whole case construction of a Reverso makes sense because back then we had only plexiglass, so you want to protect the whole the dial side. As you said, for example, synthetic sapphire glass Richard Mille is as efficient as protecting the case by flipping it. So that could, for example, from a pure creative perspective, raise the question of, should a 21st century Reverso lose its flip side architecture to become thinner and have a synthetic sapphire glass, which is thicker and resistant to any kind of brutal shocks that you could put through it?
Yeah, you see, Sylvain, you sit there, you design your own watch, it's a success, and then you move straight on to suggesting that the Reverso should no longer reverse. I think you're getting ahead of yourself here. I think the arrogance of selling 10 years worth of watches in one weekend now just means you think you can take on the world, and you're choosing to take on JLC first.
No. I'm just brainstorming. Sorry if it has been taken this way with some intention.
So I'm standing.
There's this meme when everyone's sitting at a table and everyone's making stupid suggestions, and then there's this one guy who makes the only suggestion that makes sense, and they threw him out the window. Basically, it's like that.
Yeah,
but it no longer reverses.
Mike, who'll be listening to this show, doing the show notes. Mike, if you happen to be able to do one of those memes that just shows Sylvain suggesting that the Reverso should no longer reverse and then being lobbed out the window at the GLC boardroom for the show notes, that would be funny.
Or
maybe they could just say it's been permanently reversed, and that's it. Look at that. It's just reversed.
Or you make a recto and a verso. You make a recto which doesn't flip and shows the time, and you make a verso which is basically just a case back with nothing on it.
Why don't they just go the other way, and rather than have Reverso, they just change it to a forward-looking thing and just call it the Progresso?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That has the lowest chance of all.
Good stuff. Well, go and check out. If you happen to be in New York, be really interested to hear from you as to if you went to both, as to which one you enjoyed, and if you went to Ariel's G-Shock launch, as to which one you enjoyed the most.
Hi, this is Ariel Adams, founder of aBlogtoWatch, with a message about eBay. I visit eBay daily and have been relying on eBay to learn about and acquire watches for more than 20 years. Did you know that you can now buy watches directly from brands or their authorized dealers on eBay? Timepieces coveted by watch enthusiasts from brands like Zodiac, Laco, Parallel, and more are part of eBay's Certified by Brand program. Here's how it works. Luxury names are partnering with eBay to bring brand new and pre-owned watches and other luxury accessories directly to you. Certified by Brand includes a minimum 1-year factory warranty for watches and offers an unprecedented selection of new and used watches directly from the source, all with the peace of mind you can expect from eBay. Visit ebay.com/certifiedbybrand for more information.
Ariel, you have reviewed a Disney Fossil limited edition sketch. We're trying to go right across the wide variety of watches this morning, from Sylvain's Mirage to the Reverso and Omega Planet Oceans, etc. We're now on hand-drawn, artistic, cheap Disney times Fossil limited edition sketch watches. What is so appealing to you about this watch?
Well, I'm always fascinated how major companies today are incorporating pop culture into their watches. I've written about collaborations and the best way to do it and the wrong way to do it. And we go from having these like boring watches that just has like some property logo on the dial to a little bit more creativity. And Fossil, that is not normally associated with Disney watches, did a few of these. They're mechanical. And, I like these directions because I think that we are, whether or not we like it, we can all agree that for the next 10 years minimum, there's going to be a lot of pop culture character-based watches. And some of them are going to be great and some of them are going to be terrible. And here we also have a rejuvenation of Fossil as a brand that they sort of want enthusiasts to be into, right? 5 years ago, a mechanical, Mickey Mouse hands watch from Fossil never would have come out. But I know a little bit about what the brand is doing. So I'm trying to see for that entry-level mechanical watch enthusiast or just, someone who doesn't have the biggest budget, really where Fossil could sort of fit in. So this is, the beginning of, I think, more interesting stuff here. Under $400. It's interesting. I think the case is a little bit thick, and I think that there's obviously, but again, it's the heritage case that they're going to be continuing to do stuff on. So I overall found this to be a spirited watch, and everyone likes it. But again, it's part of my larger journey to see how these pop culture icons meld with elegant watch design. And again, this isn't perfect. I think one of the interesting things that's kind of weird about it is it's supposed to be sketch Mickey. That's the one I have. They have a few others. And as a sketch, it's supposed to look a little bit unclear, but you have this weird contrast where the hands are like much more vividly detailed than the Mickey itself. And this is a slight thing, but I just find it fascinating to see how the intersection of like super nerdy, little details, proportions, and things like that meld in with the incorporation of these pop culture icons. The Gerald Genta Disney watches were probably amongst the best at combining that sense of looking at a character from something with like, really good, proper watchmaking and watch style design, which is sort of the bar, I think, right, for a lot of these. And that's sort of how I judge against it. But again, no one's getting any of those Gerald Genta ones for anywhere near this type of affordable
$400.
price.
Sylvain, you're obviously involved at Breitling, and there are a number of collaborations there. What makes a good collaboration?
It's a good question. It's a tough exercise. Generally speaking, I think a good collaboration is when the other brand brings something that you do not have, or you would not have the reputation to do. I think these are the best collabs, in my opinion. And for example, here, Fossil and Mickey, I think the watch is very, very nice. I'm trying to scroll to see which size it is. Do we know the 40 millimeter? So very well sized, and I find the watch very cool. Actually, I should try to get one myself. It's very cool, this piece. I like it.
Breitling Mickey Mouse coming to a Breitling boutique sometime in 2026, by the sounds of it, from Sylvain. What is there any collaborations, Sylvain, David, Ariel, that stand out for you from any brands as being that is just really well done? I think everybody has agreed that it's all about the collaborator bringing something that the brand effectively couldn't get away with doing itself off of its own back. Is there a watch that springs to mind as being just the best example or the most shocking example of a collaboration?
Well, I'll answer with this. There's two features of the collaboration that you need to judge. One is the ultimate watch. Like, how nice is the watch? Does it, as Sylvain say, incorporate something that both sides need to contribute for it to sort of be satisfying? Or is the marketing relationship one that makes sense? And I think these are two very different things. For sort of enthusiasts like us, we're not really too concerned about the outward relationship, right? Does James Bond and Omega make sense? From a marketing perspective, everyone's like, yeah. Do the actual watches always look like they make sense? Some of them absolutely, others not at all. It's just like a cheap, like branding marketing exercise. So I want to sort of distinguish between those two things. I mean, and I'll go back to Omega. That one that Daniel Craig designed, the Seamaster one that was in titanium. I forget the exact name. It was the Commander. I don't remember what exactly it was called, but that one that was just so nicely done. Daniel Craig himself had input on it. It didn't say 007. It was the watch he wore in the movie. That for me is one of the the better examples of having success across multiple things: the watch, the story, and then the brand relationship. So for me, that is a good example of doing multiple things right.
David, anything spring to mind?
Well, you got me with saying that that particular brand brings something to the watch brand. I liked some executions on these collaborations because they were authentic in a way that like they addressed multiple different aspects of the watch, like Hublot and Ferrari. I really liked those. It was a long-term thing. It went way beyond what others had done before it. When they would just plaster the Ferrari logo on a watch. I really like that. As far as like two brands collaborating, especially car brand and watch brand, for me, Ferrari and Hublot always spring to mind, just because it was so well executed and so well done for a long period of time. But then again, when Ferrari designed the watch, it was terrible. So it's really interesting because it was basically unwearable on all sizes of wrists, which is a very strange achievement, and yet they somehow did it. It was a beautiful thing to look at and nicely executed in a way, but it was basically like a car that nobody can sit inside comfortably. Which is kind of on brand, actually, for Ferrari as a whole, at least.
Sylvain, you ever been jealous of a collaboration that you've just seen come to fruition and gone, "Oh, I wish we'd collaborated with them"?
Nothing that comes to mind. What I can say from my experience at Breitling, we see it right away, and any collaboration is actually a double-edged sword, in the sense you see it instantly when a collaboration is very good for the brand and brings something. And one example at Breitling could be the collaboration we've done with Deus, the Australian clothing brand. Yeah. Their collaboration with Breitling gave them the chance to venture into high-end watchmaking. So that is something they could not reach on their own. And for us, that gave us the opportunity to step in the surfing and custom motorcycle culture. We also developed a line of clothing together of Breitling's X Deus, and this collaboration works fantastically well, both in the Deus retail points and in the Breitling stores. It's incredible. So, and this goes to show that none of each brand could have reached that stage without being together. And this is, to me, where collaboration really makes sense.
How often the three of you, Sylvain, you maybe know this better than the rest of us, how often do brands knock back the approaches, that's watch brands, knock back the approaches of non-watch brands who pitch them an idea of a collaboration? Like, does it tend to be generic in that it just builds up to let's do something together? Or is there, like, in the background, a load of marketing people going around trying to pitch brands to watch companies, say, "Oh, do a collaboration with us," and the watch brands like, no, actually, we'd really rather not. Do we know? Does that happen?
Oh, yes, it happens a lot. We have an entire so-called partnership department at Breitling,
right?
Which works day and night to essentially protect the brand, because the risk of these collaborations is a lot of people want to build brands only based on collaborations, and all they want is to partner with the biggest accounts they can reach to, hoping that this will artificially fuel the exposure of their brands. But to me, a good collaboration works only when both parties have a proper philosophy to bring to the table. Otherwise, it becomes quickly very empty, which is why I think collaborations can be extremely dangerous, because if you don't have a mix of black and white, so to speak, or yin and yang, you end up with this very artificial product that feels very commercial and very superficial, and it can create the extreme opposite of what you intended in the first place.
Interesting. Didn't know that it was just so busy in the background with people pitching stuff, but that's a really interesting.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah,
it's a huge amount, Rick. There's every iteration you can conceive of is pitched, and really the bottom line is a lot of people feel they can make a good product, but people are very insecure about selling it. So really what they're looking for is desirability peddlers, who can make the public want to buy this? Because what we know is that it typically requires a lot of time and effort to educate consumers about a new product. Even if it's amazing, it just takes a while to expose enough people, educate them, find the right group. This is a several-year process. So everybody wants a shortcut, and they believe that they'll find someone out there who will just have the sway with the audience where they can bypass a lot of that. Sort of the hope of the influencer generation. It's too much expectation, but with the internet and data, like a lot of bosses are like, oh, there isn't immediate performance, it's considered a failure. So a lot of it has to do with some, I think, unreasonable expectations of managers, as well as the perceived ability to guerrilla market everything, when the reality is that's actually not how it's going to happen for most brands. It's going to take time and effort and some patience.
Well, here is a comment from the comment section. Let's see if we can guess what the collaboration is. I imagine that this watch is very helpful in tracking how far ahead Verstappen is of the Mercedes cars. If it had a Rattrapante function, you could also simultaneously time how far ahead McLarens are also, or maybe the Aston Martins. Wonder if the second-hand porpoises too. Mercedes-AMG fan here, but credit where credit's due. Two of the funnier comments I've seen on aBlogtoWatch Weekly. Any guesses as to who the collaborators might be?
When someone uses the word porpoise, you know that they really wants to show off that they are very much into Formula One. And I'm impressed, I have to say. It's got to be the IWC AMG watch for sure.
Yeah, so I think this would be viewed as being a fairly successful collaboration, although maybe with one brand in particular not having the greatest of times at the moment. It was perhaps a funner collaboration when they were winning things. But yes, this is the IWC Pilot's Watch, the 41 AMG Mercedes. It's an incredibly long and ridiculously titled watch. But what do we think of the watch? David, does this float your boat as a collaboration and as an IWC chronograph?
It's funny, if you look back at the last couple of years, everyone's making a Daytona now. And basically this is theirs. It's like a shiny ceramic bezel, 3 counters. It's the recipe is so blatantly obvious that we've been seeing from, some, actually many. I don't know. It's an odd one in some ways, and the one that I really like gets really expensive really fast. It's like 20 grand if you want the one with the black case and the black strap, or bracelet, I should say. It's weird. I was looking at these pictures the other day, and I could see that even on IWC's pictures, it's like a large watch head on a narrow bracelet. And maybe it looks different in person, but on these pictures it looks like, well, I guess we're ahead of our time with the bracelet and way behind with our watch head. It's just a balloon attached to like an actually pretty cool bracelet, which is a novel, apparently relatively novel design. So it's not that I'm confused, but there are bits that I like and bits that I really don't, and that is not something that makes me want to rush to an IWC boutique.
Yeah, I was most surprised by the price jump as you go up the various grades. The entry level is just under 10,000 USD, and the top end tops out at just under 20,000 USD. Sylvain, you're an IWC aficionado of past hat wearing. What do we think of this?
I like IWC. I like their mindset. Rebounding on what David said, the large case / small or narrow strap is actually, to me, probably one of the biggest IWC points in this product, because it is very typically IWC to have narrow straps. But I agree with David in the sense that you can read in between the lines what was the target making this product, and I think it shows a bit too much. I have no doubt that this is extremely well executed and reliable and precise, and knowing their level of manufacturing. But the comparison I could do is, it remembers me when my father used to tell me, do you know how you can catch a butterfly? And it was funny. He taught me this when I was a kid. He said, if you want to catch a butterfly, you should not run after it. You should make a beautiful garden and it will come by itself. And that's also, for example, a metaphor you can use for watches. You should not try to catch the wave and try to do what the others do. You should focus on yourself. Has done it good enough, then people will come, but they will come for who you are and not because they want to.
I love that. That's very true.
Yeah, I love that. That's Ariel, brief thoughts on this?
I like this collection a lot. I think it's handsome. I don't refute anything which has been said already here. I'm not as concerned about the sort of tapering bracelet. Given that this watch isn't their most wide, it's 41 millimeters, I don't think it's going to look like this really big watch case with narrow strap or bracelet, but, we'll have to see it. I think that, this is an overall very nicely executed watch. I have high hopes for it. As an enthusiast, you kind of laugh. You're like, wait a minute, pilot's watch, racing, I'm, confused a little bit. Like the theme that this watch is supposed to be is confounded for sure. I mean, it literally has automotive, terms on it, and it says pilot's watch on it. It's like, if you're trying to have a sensible tool, this doesn't make sense. From a fashion perspective, from IWC trying to assert a certain look for themselves, I completely understand where they went about promoting this. I guess for me, is I'm looking at these prices and I'm guessing this is the new normal. I'm not thrilled with it. I think that this watch, should have been half the price, to be honest. But this represents, I guess, the current level of production, because if they make less watches, they need to charge more for it. So my hope is that the deal they're making with the community is we're going to charge you more, but the watches are actually going to be more exclusive, meaning we're going to not make as many. And that's yet to be seen. But my hope is that is at least what brands like IWC are offering in exchange for what are admittedly pretty high prices.
Great stuff. Right, we have 5 minutes left, 5-minute warning. So we're very quickly, and that's all directed at you, Ariel. We are very quickly going to play a round of hit miss maybe on 3 watches: the Tissot T-Touch, the Bremont Waterman Apex 2, and the stealthy Bell & BR0394. So first up, the new Tissot T-Touch Connect. This is actually one of the watches, the original one that I own, that's still one of my favourite watches, but is this new iteration? Very quickly, one-word answers: a hit, a miss, or a maybe. Ariel, let's do your best. Hit, miss, maybe for the Tissot T-Touch Connect.
I haven't reviewed the current generation. I reviewed all the previous ones. I have a soft spot for the T-Touch and all its iterations, even though it's not always today a class leader in all of the functionality. But it's a very fun watch, so it's optimistically hit for me. But I haven't worn the newest generation yet.
The newer one is at least smaller than the monster that preceded it. It was a formerly very neat watch that is now back to being quite neat. David, hit miss maybe on the T-Touch?
I'll call this a hit for sure. Yeah.
Great stuff. Sylvain, Breitling have this kind of technology in their stable in terms of digital interfaces, etc. Is this something you're jealous of? Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe?
Yeah, to me it's a hit as well. I have some friends who run these kind of watches, especially for cycling, and they really love it. So I've never wore one myself, but it's still a hit for me.
Excellent. That's what we like, nice and concise. So, Bremont limited edition, Bremont Waterman Apex 2, a hit, a miss, or a maybe, David?
I'll call this a maybe, I guess. Yeah, a half-assed maybe.
a less than enthusiastic maybe. Ariel, hit, miss, maybe on this from Bremont?
It's a bit of a miss for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I love a lot of these watches. I have a different version of this in for review. I think the problem for me is that this is really a dive watch. They sort of turned into a GMT. It does not have a bidirectional bezel. It has a unidirectional one. It's just that, the 2893, at a GMT movement, which is fine. But I think at this price level, consumers expect a little bit more of a GMT focus in terms of a slightly more modern or advanced movement, and a little bit less of sort of an adapted dive watch design. These are pretty, and the size is good, but I just don't think this is where your money is best spent in Bremont.
Yeah, bit of a dog's breakfast for me. It's a miss, but what about for you, Sylvain? Hit miss maybe?
I agree with both. To me, it's a maybe combination of it is very hard to pull off, in my opinion, as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a final watch for today, the Bell & Ross BR0394 Black Track Limited Edition. I really like this. This is a hit. What do you guys think, Sylvain?
Let me see. I'm trying to see the watch. I haven't seen it yet. Can you ask Ariel and David first?
Yes, I'll ask Ariel. It's a hit for me. Ariel, what do you think?
Going to the conversation earlier about collaborations, there's this very specific kind of motorcycle, and they tried to make a watch that fits with it, and it kind of does. If you've never seen the motorcycle, you can still enjoy some of the design elements here. I've always loved it when Bell & Ross takes their core designs and then makes these interesting evolutions. They never just do a new dial. They always vary up the case and hands and things like that. So there's a lot of new parts here. So for me, this is a hit.
Excellent. David?
Yeah, a hit for me as well. At 6,900, I appreciate that it has a new dial and what appears to be a case that I've never seen before. Just overall a cool execution. I like it.
Great stuff. Sylvain, finally for you.
Yes, I've seen it now, and it's a hit for me as well. I especially like the case with the chopped corners, so to speak. I like to believe that the guy who drew this actually has some motorcycle riding experience, because these corners that have been chopped are typically the kind of stuff that would rub your sleeves or make the watch extremely uncomfortable while riding a motorcycle. So this is really on point. I think it's very cool.
Great stuff. Well, that's our show for this week. What is everybody doing very quickly? Ariel, you're in Dubai. First day.
I will be here, for more than a week, and there'll be, I don't know, probably close to 100 different meetings. About 60 or 70 of them are with specific brands. There's going to be podcasts, lots of hands-on stuff. So it's going to be a very busy week for me here in the Middle East.
Excellent. David, plans?
Oh my goodness, there's so much stuff up in the air. I don't even know where to start. It's just a lot. Just keep checking aBlogtoWatch.com is all I can say.
Excellent. And Sylvain, where can people find you on the internet? I assume your only plan is making watches.
Yes.
Where can folk find you?
Yes. I'm currently working on Breitling for, what do we do, 27, 28 currently.
Wow.
Berneron is 26, and you can find me on Instagram at Berneron, Berneron.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Sylvain, for joining us. Loving the watch. Thank you, everybody else, for listening. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.